Can you see me, dear?
Hey, friend, how are ya?
Good. Oh, you know what? You can't see me because it's all blacked out up there.
Yeah, okay, so I'm looking now. Sorry, I was, it looks like something's covering your lens. Because I see light in the like little upper left-hand corner.
You know what? Biscuit either. Sorry, my camera wasn't plugged in to my computer.
Well, that's not gonna work then. It probably needs some power.
No, it's little, I'm like, God bless America. There it goes. Okay, sorry.
You are.
I got in this morning and David Fielden wants to talk about me doing research on these heirs, and I'm like, David, I'm gonna need the family's help on getting their numbers. I'm not tracking them down or, that's their job to get me good contact numbers and I will take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, that's still fresh in my brain. Okay, so I'm logged in as me, but I need to be logged in as you under training.
Well, no, it doesn't really matter because this is just a meeting. I can change my name to Zareen. It doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
The ability to share my own screen. So hold on. Okay. Just gonna share my screen.
Okay, I'm sending a reminder to the people that accepted or said tentatively, which it looks like there's a lot, so we'll see who actually shows up. Or there's a new agent, Carl Chester, who
I think you're still in record mode. I don't know if you want to record our test rehearsal.
Oh, you know what I do? I used to stop recording it and then because we have it set to automatically record, and then I would start, and I've gotten much better at just editing. So I just cut out the beginning. I just only start it when we're like actually like I go into YouTube and I edit the videos like a real nerd. Okay, I see your screen, but it looks like I'm seeing the whole, like your slides and the, I see the whole presenter view. Hey, Dottie. So if you see at the top where it says slideshow. Yes, and then if you go like, from beginning, yeah, or from current slide, sure, perfect. So now we're looking at just the slide you want us to be looking at, but you have your presenter view on a different screen, right? Uh-oh, now I can't hear you. Nope.
What about now?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. I think the microphone is in my laptop, so I moved it closer to me. And let me turn off my fan too.
Okay, if the sound is fine, so if if for some reason your microphone doesn't start working, what I'll have you do is just call in on your phone. But seems to be working for now. Uh-oh. Nope, it's not working. So let's just have you call in on your phone. That's probably our best bet. Sorry, I know that's annoying. Hold on. Okay, you can call and the number is 346-248-7799. And then it asks for a meeting ID. But is that what it asks for? Okay, the meeting ID is 874-5746-0460. And then that you need a passcode.
Can you repeat that again? Because it's not.
Here, I tell you what, I'm gonna text it to you. It's do you want the meeting ID?
I was just gonna write it down so I could type it in because it was
Sure.
not.
I just
Oh,
texted
perfect. I got it right there.
Awesome. I know when you're like, if I text it to you and you're trying to type it in, you can't really see it, so. Yeah. Sorry, Dottie, you're seeing all of our behind the scenes mess while we're working out our tech difficulties.
Okay, let me see.
So there we go. Okay, so now what you have to do, you're gonna get an echo, is mute your office computer.
Now I gotta figure out.
Okay. That's good. There's no echo now. So basically what you want to do is like mute, turn the volume way down on your office computer so that you're not getting any noise from, it sounds good now, I think. Oh shoot, but now I can't hear you. No, you muted your phone. Don't mute your phone. I can't hear you. I see you talking.
I'm trying to find the mute button on the Zoom on my computer, so it's not doing the echo thing.
So, yeah, so, and then the other thing you need to do is the speakers on your phone, like you have to turn those down. I mean, on your computer, you have to turn down too, because your computer's gonna pick up sorry, you basically have to turn your computer into like no sound incoming or outgoing. Sorry.
Okay, I think we're in business now.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, that's the trick, is that you have to turn when your computer, you basically have to make the computer like sound free and only operate off of your phone. I'm glad we're doing this in advance. Good job.
Me too. Okay. All right.
When we have 5 minutes,
All right.
I am going to send out a couple of earnest money instructions.
Okay, I mean, we can mute and go off video if you want until it's 2 minutes from now or 3 minutes from now. Oh, now your screen, I'm still looking at the whole screen, not the presenter view, but I get that you're working, so. That's the problem, is that once you switch to that view, you can't really work, so we can wait and switch to it later. Well, good.
There is a terrible echo though.
For you,
I wonder if I need to hang up and try logging in again. Everything that I say, it repeats in my ear.
Oh. Okay, you need to mute your home, your here, there. I think this is gonna be better. Try that. I just muted you. I muted your computer.
Okay.
Yeah, this is good.
Oh my God, much better. Okay.
Yeah, because you,
I in the bottom right hand corner, I mean, I muted the speaker, so it shouldn't be doing anything, but I think it's because the Zoom is not muted.
right, well, you're getting, your computer is still, even if your computer may not be hearing any sound because you turned it all the way down, but it's still picking up what you're putting out. Anyway, it's
Yeah.
fixed. We'll take it. Just in the nick of time.
Yeah. Okay. Um, all right. We'll give them a couple of more minutes to get on.
Yeah, I think what we should do is just see if anyone here who is here wants CE credit. Then go ahead and put your name and license number in the chat, please. And you can, there's the Venmo slide. Perfect. Okay. So I see Dawn and I see Marilyn and I see Dottie. So, and I have, oops, I'm doing all sorts of things on my chat. I see Dottie and Marilyn want CE credit. Dawn, if you want CE credit, put your name and license number in the chat and send the Venmo. And I think we can just wait maybe one more minute and then we can go ahead and get started. Sarah.
Did you cancel?
Nope.
I got a cancel thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's done that on a couple of years before, right
Okay.
before
I'm
it starts, instead of reminder, it says canceled. So
Yeah,
actually
I was
twice I
like-
thought, I don't know if this is happening.
okay.
Oh, well, that's not good. Hold on.
I just wanted to pop on really quick. I was like not gonna have my camera on because I'm still
It
real
followed,
cozy.
It's so weird because
followed Zareen by one that said join us shortly.
okay, join us shortly. Yeah, that's what
But-
should happen.
The first one did say canceled.
Yeah.
Okay, it's so weird. Huh. Oh, I know why. I figured it out. Okay, this calendar invite thing, just before we get going, to give everyone one more minute to hop on, are the calendar invites helpful or not helpful?
Helpful.
Okay.
Very helpful.
I've
Yeah.
had feedback from a manager that some agent was like, she needs to stop sending calendar invites. And I mean, like, I get some people are Outlook calendar people and some people aren't.
Yeah.
So
I
that's-
like the reminders.
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe send a message that it is happening. I don't know.
Okay, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
the
I'll-
only thing about the messages was it did this thing that I don't know if it's been all of them, but it's certainly been for a couple I've noticed. It says canceled. So I click on it anyway and it works. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but
You know what happens is I sent a reminder to everyone who registers and I say, hey guys, I take off the all agents. So I think when I uninvite all agents, it sends a cancellation, which is like super annoying. So that's
Oh.
helpful feedback. Thank you. I'm gonna, I think what I'll do is I'll start sending an email to you, to anyone who registers right before, okay. So I think Randy, we can go ahead and get going and I will send an email to everyone who had RSVP'd.
All right, give me about 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Real quick. And
Okay, Marilyn and Dottie are, on, so you guys don't need to get the email.
all right. Okay, all right. Let me move this. Sorry, I'm just arranging my screen over here. Okay.
I know, it's a lot to organize.
All right. Good morning, ladies. And gent, if there's anyone else on there that I can't see. Our class today is Be an Expert at the Closing Table. And it is hosted by yours truly, which all of you know me now after being here a few months. All right, we'll move along. And all right, so our agenda for today is the closing process in general. We're going to review the closing disclosure form, brief review of other closing documents that the buyer and seller may sign, how closings work, what happens at the closing table, communication leading up to and after closing, best practices to facilitate a smooth closing for everyone involved. Let's see.
Before we get going, does anyone have any specific questions or anything specifically that they want to cover? We have a good agenda here, so no pressure, but if there was something specifically, just chime in. These classes are much better when you guys ask questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, feel free to interrupt me anytime. Title company's role. So we are the escrow agent and or settlement agent, and are the neutral third party in all transactions. And we research and prepare all of the title work. And kind of prepare title work. Once we receive the contract, then we then open title, which means it goes to the search and abstract plant, and they do a full title search in the property records of the county, wherever the property is located. And they go back 60, 70 years to make sure that the chain of title is clear, sometimes further than that. It just depends on the history of the property and kind of what's all involved. In addition to that, we request a tax certificate, which certifies the amounts, and that's through a third-party service who then obtains it directly from the county tax office. Then we, once we get the title work back, we send the title work out, the tax certificate, and we also include what's called a seller intake form and a purchaser's or buyer's intake form. On the seller side, it's a little more involved because it asks, are you married? Are you single? We get date of birth, social. Are there any mortgages on the property? Do you have a survey for the property? If you're currently single, were you divorced? Are you widowed? Ask questions like that. If title comes back and it's in an LLC or it's in a trust, on the seller intake form, it states to provide a full copy of the LLC docs or the trust documents, not just the portion that pertains to the property. The underwriter wants to review the whole document. And so we'll then, once we receive those back, then we'll submit it to the underwriter for approval.
Hey, Randy.
And then, yes.
So on this slide, like it has things that appear. So if you just press like next and next on the PowerPoint, there we go. Now we can see the bullets. We couldn't see the bullets.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. The slide is tricky. It's like it's a real cliffhanger for you guys. And you get to see what's next. Yeah. Okay.
My apologies.
No worries.
Okay. So, and I will try to keep this to, actually, we do have to do a hard stop at, I'll probably stop a couple of minutes before 10 because I have a 10 a.m. closing, which is good because I tend to be long-winded anyway. So I don't want to keep y'all any longer than I need to. Okay, so prepare of closing documents, an escrow officer between parties. So in addition to the title search and the tax certificate and things like that, we have what's called our title company littles. And those include waiver of inspection, which the buyer signs. And what that is basically the buyer or buyers are acknowledging that the title company does not do an inspection of the property and they're not holding us liable for any condition of the property or any people that are currently occupying the property outside of the vested and parties that are listed in the contract. And the example that I always use, and this has happened in the past with investor clients of mine, are squatters. So for example, if there's a squatter, if they do a walkthrough and there's a squatter in there, we can't be held responsible for that. So again, we're the third party. So we are a neutral third party. So we cannot take sides on any matters. We simply follow the terms of the contract. So, and of course, there's always going to be gray areas. It's not always going to be black and white. So I always tell everyone, reach out to Zareen and myself. If you could send us an email and just CC us both, or just, give us a call. And if you have any issues, we'll be glad to help you resolve those.
So one of the points that I want to make here with respect to them like doing the title search, especially just to clarify who's on the seller side, is if you have a listing and you've signed the listing agreement with one person, but you're not exactly sure, like maybe they were married when they bought the property, or there's just raise a little red flag in your brain and bring it to us like during the listing before you put it under contract with the buyer, because you want to make sure that whoever is signing the actual contract with the buyer is the actual seller. Like if you have one man who signed the contract with your buyer, but he was divorced and the ex-wife still has rights in it and she has to sign, or he mentions that he inherited it. You just want to make sure that the proper seller is signing the contract. It's one thing for us to have a listing agreement and be sorting it out. It's another thing for us to put it under contract with the third party, like a buyer, and not have the right seller. That happened to me once with an investment property. We put it under contract and we got to like the day before closing and the title company called and they were like, there's like 7 heirs that need to sign that we can't even find. So the deal just died. So just be mindful of that. It's okay for the listing agreement for us because we can always fix it, but you really need to know who the exact seller is and who needs to sign when you're signing a contract. And Randy can help you with that.
Absolutely. And kind of piggybacking off of that, if you have clients, whether they're on the seller side or the buyer side, and typically this happens with younger folks who are selling their house or buying a house, or folks who have not experienced, buying and selling houses that many times in their lifetime, and want to enlist the advice of others, i.e. their parents or a friend of theirs or someone. Just know that if they are not a party to the contract, legally, we cannot speak to them. The workaround, similar like going to the doctor. The doctor's office is not going to talk to anyone else unless you provide a prior authorization to them to have on file. Similar to us. So if you want the seller's father or the buyer's dad or the buyer's mom to be able to speak with us about and discuss the closing statement or anything like that, we will need an email from all parties, whichever side they're on, stating that we have permission to discuss with, Jane Doe and John Doe regarding the purchase or regarding the sale of this. So, all right, let me move on to the next one, and feel free to interrupt if y'all have any questions.
I obviously have no problem interrupting.
All right, we are going to review the closing disclosure. So this is the seller's CD. And if there is a loan on the property, then we will be using an actual closing disclosure for both sides. Now, the title company always provides the seller's closing disclosure, and the lender always provides the buyer's closing disclosure. That's something that I think has been misunderstood throughout the industry, So I will say that we do balance with the lenders, typically 2 to 3 days before closing. And so what we do, since we're funding and dispersing the transaction, we have to make sure all of our numbers, match. So we do balance with them, but the actual preparer of the CD is the lender. All right. So on this one here, you will see, up here is all of the usual information: closing date, settlement agent, property address, sales price. All of this is always listed on here. Seller's name here, borrower's name here. I just happen to be fans of Elvis, so I plugged their names in. We have the sales price here. And then, as you'll see, this is adjustments paid in advance by the seller. So in this particular case, The seller had paid the taxes already, and so we're providing them with a prorated credit. As we move down, we see that there are closing costs, and those details are found on closing column J, which we'll review here in just a second. And then if you go further down, it shows property taxes that were due for 2022. And because this property isn't an estate, the seller has been deceased for a couple of years, so there are back taxes owed. So any delinquencies that are on the property, we will collect for, and we have to. They are not an option. I've actually had, last year, I had a property here in Dallas. There were $38,000 worth of back taxes. And the heirs, they went through probate and everything. And there were two heirs. One of them wanted to sell, the other one did not, because he says, well, I'm not responsible for, the $38,000. That was my sister's fault. That was, and it doesn't matter if we're going to close the property and issue a clear title policy, anything outstanding has to be paid, which includes, Dallas City mowing liens or trash liens. Anything that shows up on our title search has to be paid as well.
So guys, that's what the title policy is, right? Is that the title company is saying it's an insurance policy for the buyer, saying you have clear title to the policy, and we are ensuring that there's nothing outstanding against it except for those specific items that are listed in Schedule B, right? So the buyer can rest easy that like the title company has taken care of all of these things. And if for some reason the title company missed something, that's what the insurance title policy is for. The title company would take care of it. So that's really what you're getting, is like with the title policy, is like peace of mind that like you own the property and there's no outstanding items against it other than what the title company specifically told you in the title commitment that they were not insuring. Does that make sense to you guys? Any questions? Okay, good deal.
All right. All right, let's go to second page. As you can see on here at the top, there are, if there were any seller paid lender fees, the lender typically puts them next to the actual fee. We do not, and I'll show you where those go in just a moment, but if you'll notice under C, this is where all of our title fees begin. So our escrow or settlement fee, the recording fee for any release for the seller. So if the lender instructs us to record that, then we will do so. And then if you move down a little bit, you'll see where the commissions are listed here. The GARC fee is one of those fees that goes to the state of Texas for all title policies, or for any title policy that's issued. And then the bulk of the owner's title policy is there. The reason why it's optional is because it is optional. However, no title company in the state of Texas is going to close a real estate transaction and not issue a policy. So, and it's just, I've had investor clients who are trying to save, a buck here and there, and they're like, well, I just want to close it without it. Title's clear. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to find another title company to do that. So, and which is really hard to do. As you'll notice below the base title insurance are the two endorsements. So if we get, if on the contract it's listed that the buyer wants additional survey coverage, then those endorsements will be added and charged accordingly. In this case, it looks like the seller is paying for those on behalf of the buyer. Sometimes the buyer pays for those. It just depends on what the contract says.
And guys,
of course,
item 11 there.
Oh, go ahead, dear.
When you guys are negotiating, whether your buyer wants that extra coverage or not, that pertains to, restrictions, encroachments, et cetera. That's what you're negotiating right there, that T19 endorsement. So in this contract, they checked, yes, we want that coverage and the seller's paying for it. So that's why it's showing up here.
Does that coverage vary dramatically based on the price point of the home?
Yes, it does. So the title policy and any endorsements that attach to the title policy, whether it's the owner's title policy or lender's policy, are all based off of the sales price of the property.
So
Similar to your commissions,
right.
the higher the sales price, the higher they're going to be.
So I know I'm familiar with, of course, the general policy cost, but the add-on insurance, does that fluctuate? And if
It's 5% of the premium, I think. So if your premium, the premium in this case is $15.95, I believe that $79.75 would be 5% of that. I could look really stupid here, but I think that's the general rule.
That's correct. That is correct. The endorsements are typically 5 or 10% of the base premium amount, depending on what the actual endorsement is. Sometimes that's for the owner's title policy. For the lender's policy, the endorsements could vary from anywhere from like $25 up to like $100, depending on what the lender's requirements are.
So Dawn, if you ever want to figure out what the cost is when you're talking to your buyers, if you're negotiating $1 million contract and you're saying here, you can ask me or Randy and we can calculate it for you, but a Texas title premium calculator that would be found on the internet, we have one on our website, for example, will tell you the premium cost. And then that extra coverage that you're negotiating in that section, I think it's 8 something. You would just calculate 5% of that. And that's the cost of that additional endorsement. So it's not a huge price for what you're getting.
Yeah, it's always small. I just didn't know the percentage, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, good deal.
Sure, no problem. All right. So in addition, if there are HOA fees, home warranty or survey costs, then those would be listed here in section H as well. And they would be charged accordingly. Typically the seller pays for most of the HOA fees. The buyer, depending on the contract, it could be, $100 or a couple of $100 that the buyer contributes towards that. Same thing with the survey. If the seller provides a survey, but it's not approved by us, then we would charge according to what the contract states. So, and if you'll notice, the total cost, the $16,093. So we're going to go backwards real quick. And if you'll notice on line N2, that's where that amount comes from. And so at the bottom here, you'll see once we subtract all of the closing costs from the initial sales price, the bold number at the bottom, 195,504.83, is what the seller is going to walk away with. All right. Do y'all have any questions about the seller's closing disclosure?
I know this is a little bit dry, guys, but usually the only time you see this is when you're like sitting in a closing. You don't want to ask questions. So this is your chance to like ask away.
Yes, feel free to ask away. And just, just so all of y'all can be familiar, because I know every title company kind of does it a little differently, but typically what I like to do is send the seller's closing statement out typically a week before closing. There's not anything that's going to change on the seller side, even though I might be waiting on closing instructions from the buyer. So I want to go ahead and get that out of the way. That way we can get the questions answered. And then at closing, they can just come in and sign. They don't have to worry about, especially if they're on a time, strict time frame. And the seller's package, we typically can be done with it in about 10 minutes. Just because there's not that many documents that are in there. And also, this is the closing disclosure for the buyer. And also to kind of provide y'all with a little insight too on what goes on behind the scenes with the lender, even though you may be representing the seller. So we have to, ideally, we have to balance with the lender about 3 days before closing, typically 2 to 3 days before closing. Sometimes that happens the day before closing. Sometimes it happens the day of closing. This actually happened to me just last week, where the lender got clear to close at the very last minute, literally the day of closing, and everyone on the buyer's side was kind of in limbo. And so we, got the clear to close the day of closing. We balanced. Then we had to wait for the lender's attorney to provide documents for us, and we ended up closing later in the afternoon/evening with the buyers via remote notary. So that if the closing is, if you feel that it's last minute and things are happening like that, it's generally because the lender has not sent us closing instructions. And a lot of lenders cannot send us closing instructions, and we cannot begin balancing until their underwriter has granted them clear to close. So
This is why
I know it sounds like I'm.
No, this is why it makes sense to use Momentous and Connected together, because they're in super close contact. And Randy's not shy about giving John a hard time if need be.
No, and
There's
likewise, John is not.
Yeah.
But no, this is yes. I mean, it is so true. Lenders that you're not familiar with, they just, we're just another closing, just another number to them. And sadly, a lot of lenders have reduced their staff, so they're short-staffed, and things are picking up in the real estate industry again. So but if you use Connected and Momentous together, then we will not have these issues. I will say John's company got us clear to close like a week and a half before closing. I mean, it was fantastic. So and for those of you who have not visited us, we are in Suite 100, and his office is right next door to mine. So pop by and say hello. Okay, so here's the buyer CD. Again, the information is up here at the top for all who's involved in the transaction and the details. The loan amount is always listed here. The lender CD will have an interest rate and monthly principal and interest. At closing, what I like to call this is basically, this is the summary of their whole loan. So it'll have, like I said, the interest rate, the monthly principal and interest. Down here, this is where their estimated monthly payment will be, which includes the principal and interest amount. Depending on the type of loan and what their down payment is, they could have a mortgage insurance that is factored into the payment, as well as the estimated amount for escrow. And so escrow covers property taxes and homeowners insurance. Escrows do not cover HOA dues, only taxes and insurance. And then as we move further down, you'll see the closing costs associated with everything involved, which is on the second page. And then the very bottom shows their cash to close. So this is page 2, or part of page 2. So if you'll see at the top, sections A and B are the lender fees. So they're typically origination fees, processing, underwriting, appraisal. Appraisal always prepaid. The lender's attorney will charge a fee to prepare the lender package. And then there are other, ancillary fees like credit report, flood cert fee, inspection fee, and the lender also does their own tax cert, even though we do one and send one to them at closing. Further down in section C, you'll see our settlement fees, the GARC fee that attaches to the lender's title policy, And in the state of Texas, when you're purchasing a property, instead of paying the full premium amount for a lender's policy along with the owner's policy, you automatically get a discount, and it's called a simultaneous issue, which automatically reduces the base lender's premium to a flat $100. And then whatever endorsements that the lender requires, as you'll see down there in lines 4, 5, and 6.
I have a question really quick. It's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Sure. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Okay, this has happened to me twice now, where my buyer has put 20% down, and we did a partial appraisal waiver. This may be more of a lender question, but I'm going to ask you, Randy. Sorry.
Oh, no, go for it.
Okay. And we did a partial appraisal waiver up to the sales price of the purchase. It's actually one of the deals you're going to help me close on that Lexington Lane property.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
because of the partial appraisal waiver and how much he put down, they're waiving the appraisal. Like there's like a, whatever that calculation is, right, to do an appraisal.
Loan to value, right? So it sounds like he's putting so much down that the lender isn't worried that the house is not going to appraise.
Right. And so that is something that we wouldn't have a charge for in these like closing cost details, right? Because we're not doing a full appraisal. Am I reading that
Correct.
right?
If that's the case, yes, that I have seen that a couple of times over the past like 6 months. So yes, you are correct. If there's an appraisal waiver and they don't need one, based off of the amount they're putting down, then yes, that $800 prepaid would not be there. They wouldn't have to do one at all.
Okay.
And I have also seen, now each lender, don't quote me on this, but each lender has different programs and things like that. But I have seen in addition to the large down payment, depending on what assets they have, that could be, that could be another factor of why they waive the appraisal, because they're not, I think they kind of go hand in hand, honestly. So,
okay, cool. Well, that's a nice savings if they're $800.
So
yeah,
but
I
just to
mean,
be clear,
everything.
when you guys waive the appraisal, doesn't necessarily mean that you're waiving that appraisal has to be done, right? You're just waiving the buyer's right to terminate the appraisal.
Right. But they won't need one to require his loan to be satisfied. Right.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a $300,000 property and he's putting $200,000 down, they may be like, we're not going to require an appraisal here because we know we're well secured. In which case yeah. Okay.
Well, that's good. I just wanted to it freaked me out the first time it happened, and now this is the second time, and I'm just trying to understand why that is, and then if there is this savings on the closing costs. And so it seems like there is. So that's kind of good. Okay, yay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Also, one thing that I wanted to point out too, on section A, so the lender will charge, their fees. If there's a mortgage broker involved and the broker is, ABC, mortgage brokerage, and they're referring it over to, Dallas Mortgage Company, then the broker is always going to charge their fee on top of the actual lender fees as well. So just keep that in mind. That's why we always kind of steer everyone to John. While they do, no one works for free, right? Everyone's going to charge something. But I will say Connected's fees are significantly lower than their competition out there. And John has many different programs too that he can kind of speak more to. But all right.
Marilyn has a question in the chat. She's asking, is 800 for the appraisal a standard charge amount for you? So Marilyn, that charge is not something that the title company is charging. That's a lender cost. We're just reflecting it on the closing statement. Does that make sense? So different lenders might charge.
Well, I totally understand that. I'm just wondering if that's what Connected normally charges is 800.
since you're using such a specific number?
Oh, well, this was not a connected deal that he's showing you. Does that make sense? So
Oh.
he took a sample deal that was not a
Oh.
well, just so that we would have numbers to look at.
Okay, just,
Yeah.
okay, the way
Ron,
that you were talking about it, it just sounded like, okay, I didn't know you were just referring to this one deal. Okay, I thought you were talking about connected too. Sorry.
No, yeah,
Okay, sorry.
good deal.
Yeah, and I think also depending on the area the property is in, and the size of the property may factor into the appraisal fee as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've balked at lenders before about they're overcharging with appraisals, especially when it's like a quarter of an acre lot or something.
Yeah, if it's a platted lot
Mhm.
that's in a residential, like it's, that would be a questionable charge. It looked like this one also had not just a T19 endorsement, but also a T3. So it might have been like a meets and bounds description or just a little bit more unique of a property. That's just-
Okay, sorry, I wasn't keeping up that we were talking about that particular one. Okay, sorry.
No, no worries at all. Always feel free to ask questions. Okay.
That's a great question. I'm glad you, I would rather clarify that than you think that Connected has super high appraisal fees, because they don't. Okay.
Okay, so this is the bottom half of page 2. So here you will see the recording fees for the deed and for the mortgage. The mortgage is also known as the deed of trust. And that is the typically 15 to 20 page document that is signed at closing. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, the office phone was ringing. Sorry for the background noise. And then on section F, this is where the prepaid would be. So if they're paying the homeowner's insurance in advance, that would be listed there. Also, any prepaid interest from the closing date to the date of their first mortgage payment would be listed there. Next section is G. So that's any escrows that they're charging for up front. And since we're in February, the closings over the next few months will likely collect about 3 months, maybe 4 months in advance. And then the rest of the escrow account will be built up over the course of the year as, you know, the buyers make their payments. And then you'll see section H, similar to what we saw on the seller side. And you'll see here all of the seller paid fees according to the contract here. In this particular case, there was a new survey that was done, or that was required, and that was the estimate that we did receive. I can say that surveys have increased a little bit. It depends on, you know, if it's a city lot and block, or if it's meets and bounds legal. City lot and block are typically about $550-ish, give or take, depending on the company. I go through Burns and I also go through CBG. So I always get time frames and estimates first. If I know CBG generally takes a little bit longer, Burns, excuse me, Burns turns it around within like 4 to 5 business days. So, which is good. And sometimes faster, depending on the location of the property. Give me 1 minute. Sorry, I had a frog in my throat. All right. Okay, so this is page 3 of the buyer CD. So as you'll see here in section K, those are the closing costs we just reviewed. In this particular case, the taxes were already paid. And so we're charging the buyer the prorated amount from the closing date to the end of the year. And then you'll see on the right side that we're providing that credit to the seller, prorated credit. As we move down section L, their deposit, earnest money deposit, loan amount, and then the option fee you'll see there for $200. Some lenders will lump the option fee and the earnest deposit together in one, some separate it out. So as long as the full amount, the total amount of both is reflected on there, it really, doesn't matter to us. And if there is a seller credit, then that will be reflected in section L as well. And then if you scroll down a little bit to line 10, I have seen realtor credits. Last year, they were really popular. I don't know for whatever reason, but I mean, almost every closing I had one on there. So we would list that on here as well, and then it would be deducted from the commission. And then, once you, at the bottom, you'll see, once you subtract the credit and the charges, then that's where we come up with the amount that the buyer needs to bring to closing. Does anyone have any questions about this page? Okay. This one's just kind of little details that really are, that we don't review. It's just additional, reading information, to be honest with you. And then page 5 is the signature page. And then at the bottom, it has the contacts again as well. Okay. All right. It is 9:43. So we are just going to kind of move along here.
Keep moving.
This is the, I'm sorry?
And keep moving. You got it.
Okay. So this particular closing statement, this is our cash closing statement. Again, at the top, it's going to have everyone involved, closing date, property address. And these figures are the same figures we just saw on the CDs. And as you'll see, the seller side is on the left, buyers is on the right. So there's a debit and credit. So you'll see the sales price is $230. The deposit was $2,000. The loan amount was $200,000. Now, we will use this particular closing statement with a loan if it's a hard money loan or if it's a private loan from like mom and dad or grandma and grandpa. If it's a conventional FHA, VA, then those will actually be on a CD. As you'll see, it shows, the option fee, the tax prorations. These are the same fees. So if in hard money lenders actually charge significantly more than your conventional lenders do. So just keep that in mind if your clients are saying, oh, I've got a hard money lender, they can get me closed in a week. They can, but they're also going to pay for it. And then as you'll see, these are the continuation of the loan charges, our title fees, endorsements. On the left side, you'll see the owner's policy with the endorsements, commissions, and the recording fees as well down here. And continuation here, survey, and then anything we're paying down here. So, delinquent taxes, and then the 2022 taxes. And then down here, our totals for both sides. So you'll see due from borrower over here, due to seller over here on this page. All right. Any questions? Okay. I'm just going to keep moving right along. So leasebacks, rent, and security deposits on the closing disclosure. If there are any leasebacks, rent, security deposits that are involved, and please make sure that they are sent to us with the contract and the applicable addendums. I've had instances where we had no idea there was a leaseback because no one sent us the information, and then at the last minute we had to make changes. And if there's a lender involved, then the lender has to reapprove the buyer's CD even with rents and security deposits on there. But if it's included, then we will definitely, that will definitely be reflected on there. Also, please note, once the lease back is expired, we don't hold any money in escrow. Everything is dispersed at closing, including rents and the security deposit. So it's between, you know, the seller and the buyer to work out, you know, getting their deposit back and so forth. So just wanted to put that out there.
Marilyn, it looks like has a question. She's got her hand raised. Marilyn, if you can't talk, you can type it in the chat or you can just unmute.
Sorry, I don't have a question. I think I raised my hand a long time ago whenever I had that other question. Sorry about that.
Oh, that was for the appraisal. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, no worries. Well, now my screen, bear with me.
So does this make
My
sense, guys?
slideshow.
Basically, anything that's like a payment that will happen mid-month has to be prorated and the title company will take care of that, but they need the information from the clients in order to do that. Pretty straightforward. And then these are the littles, right?
Correct. Here we go. Sorry, my screen froze and it wasn't working correctly. So yes. So, okay. So this begins our title company littles. Some escrow agents refer to them as dinkies. I know it sounds kind of funny. Dinkies or junk docs. I just always call them littles. So this particular one is the tax proration agreement. So this, even though it's listed on the closing statement, it outlines the annual amount that we based the tax prorations off of. And so we have both sides acknowledge this document at closing.
And Randy, just to clarify with the agents, because I know values are kind of increasing in our tax records, you guys are required to prorate on the previous year's value, correct?
Correct, yes. So we are, once we receive the tax certificate, because the values are not out for the current year, then we have to go off the prior year. So right now we're using the tax bill from 2022.
But if the proposed values have come out, the parties can agree to prorate on the proposed the new value, correct? They have to agree in the contract. So
correct, yes.
That's a nuance for you guys, you agents. You guys are like, you know, more sophisticated than most. But if the values are very different, and you have the buyer, it may make sense to go ahead, or if you have the seller, and suggest that you prorate on the proposed value, because there will be less to settle when the actual bill comes out, if you're prorating on a number that's closer to the actual number they're going to use. Does that make sense? So if you guys are in that situation and you want to put that into the contract, I have language that you can use to put that into the contract that says the parties agree that we're going to prorate on the proposed value in the statement dated this. And then the title
So Zarina, I have a question on that. I just had a really big deal on that. A couple of them actually with taxes at the end of the year. And it was because it was during the time frame when, you know, the bills had come out, you know, so really around October.
Yeah.
And I had 3 sticky situations at the end of last year. But the one of them, so I guess my question is, isn't that something that the title company should propose to, like, what kind of buyer really knows that, you know, like,
well, they
and then
don't, but that's the title companies has, oh, sorry, I accidentally muted you. I'm sorry, Marilyn, I accidentally clicked on your thing and it muted you. It's not, I mean, that's a negotiable term. It's not something that really the title company should be like suggesting terms for you guys to negotiate. That's why you guys as like educated agents, we're trying to help you understand that. It's not really something that the title company can suggest, but you guys should know that the title company is required to prorate on, the previous year's values. So if your clients want something different, you need to suggest it.
But, okay, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess
why we're
I
doing-
didn't know that. And so in the end, I'll just tell you what happened with the title company. My buyer went after them because they did it on the previous year, even though the taxes, the suggested taxes had come out. The title company tried to say it was because of a veterans exemption, and it turned out that wasn't correct. So in the end, Independence Title had to suck up $722. And I was giving him some direction on who he should, email and call, but he did it. But in the end, Independence paid that the differentiation that they should have caught because of the closing date. It was so close to where the bills had come out, like it was October.
Okay, yeah, so they prorated off of the wrong number, which is why they were willing to eat it. Typically, if the title companies prorate and then the numbers come out and they're different, like the title company can do the calculations for you, but it's not really the title company's job to facilitate getting the buyer and seller to getting the seller to pay the buyer back. They can help do the calculations, but they can't really make the seller do it. That's why they have this document signed that you can show to the seller and say you agreed to do this. But yeah, it sounds like they just used the wrong number. But that's a good learning lesson for sure. And yeah, that's why we do
yeah.
Right? Is that's just a little nugget of information that now you guys have. And you're aware of what they're prorating off of, and if we need to be mindful that we would like them to prorate off of a different number once the proposed values come out.
On that in title after the contract, where you're talking about putting it in the contract, where do you put that in? And you have the verbiage for us? Because I'm gonna ask her, but
I would put it in special provisions. And I can send it to you so that you're not drafting it like it's drafted by an attorney. Absolutely. If that's something that is important to your clients and they want to negotiate for that, I can.
I mean, Zareen, in 18 years, I have never once put that into a contract ever.
It's because
so I'm like, is that because it's getting stickier?
It's because the values have increased so dramatically recently. That's why, right? A lot of times, I mean, what percentage of the times do your clients go back and ask for correction of the tax prorations? Very rarely, right? But, in the past year, when values have increased so much, they may say, wow, we prorated off of this number 5245 and the actual number is 8,000. So I do want that piece back from the seller. So that's why you haven't seen this in 18 years, is because this is, a dramatic increase in values that they're prorating off of.
Okay, yeah, great answer.
Just something to be aware of. You don't have to do it. It's just a tool in your toolbox,
Also, in relation to taxes, this particular file is in an estate, so we have to collect. Basically, what we do is we contact the tax office, and I believe this particular seller passed away 4 years ago. So we have to call the tax office and find out what the rollback taxes are going to be. So if you're representing a family and the property's in an estate and the seller has been deceased for a number of years, then they go back to the year that they passed away. And then I think for the year that they passed, depending on when they passed away that year, the exemptions could fall off or they may honor them.
Gotcha.
In a lot of cases, it's the homestead exemption, it's the over 65 exemption, sometimes it's the veteran exemption. So, and some veterans pay zero taxes. So families are really shocked because we have to collect for all of the years they've been deceased. So the longer they've been deceased, the more the more taxes they're going to pay.
So typically, guys, we hear about rollback taxes in with respect to like losing an agriculture exemption, but that's a great point that there might be rollback taxes if you're losing your over 65 exemption or what have you. So that's interesting. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. We'll pop over to the next one.
I think we're out of time.
This next one.
I don't want you to get.
Yeah, well, there's not too many slides left. We'll kind of breeze through here. This is
Okay,
an affidavits to possessions and liens or debts and liens. Basically, the seller is attesting that they don't have any additional debt or liens that has not already been disclosed. Okay. And this form lets us know if we need to provide a 1099 to them at the end of the year. You know, it basically asks, have you lived in the property 2 or more years? Are you married? Did you use it for, you know, business or rental purposes? Did you acquire it with where Section 1031 of the IRS code applied? And these are all standard title company littles. They may be formatted a little differently depending on which title company you close at, but since you're going to be closing with us, you'll get accustomed to ours pretty quickly.
Love it.
These are 2 pages here. This is the seller's disbursement of proceeds. So they can pick up a check in our office. We can overnight a check to them, or wire. Wire is the most popular. And so we'll just have them sign it. And then the other one provides the actual, is where they'll provide us their actual bank information. And when I send the closing statement out, I do remind them to bring a valid ID and their bank account information, including the wire routing number. The reason why I put so much emphasis on this, and you are going to laugh, I can't tell you how many times I've closed this particular with files that are in estates where heirs are coming to closing. I've had closings come to a halt because one of the heirs did not have a valid ID. So,
Oh, man.
I mean, everyone's like, who doesn't have a valid ID? But you'd be surprised. And it can be a simple Texas identification card. It doesn't necessarily have to be a driver's license. So one particular case, one of the heirs had to wait 6 weeks and he went and got a Texas identification card. And luckily the buyer was, willing to work with them and extended the closing. And then we ended up, closing 6 weeks later once he came back with the ID. So, and then I also emphasize that if they want to wire, to confirm with their bank what the wire routing number is, because some banks have a separate wire routing number than what's on the bottom of their check. So I just always have them double check, and I include this information with the initial preliminary statement to the seller, and I always copy y'all being the agents on any correspondence to your clients, whether you're on the seller side or the buyer side. That way everyone can just be included on the same thread, and we just have a continuation of it. So waiver of settlement agent responsibility. Actually, that one I may take that one out of the next slide. We don't need to worry about that one. Okay, this one is a very, very important one as well. So we've had several instances. I get all the fun ones. We have several instances where the sellers are in the middle of a divorce and the divorce is not final. So if the divorce is not finalized, then we split the proceeds 50-50. And so this is where, we'll indicate, half is going here and half is going there, or whatever the mutually agreed upon split is. In addition to them executing this document, the split will also be noted on the closing statement. So that way it's in 2 different places. So just in case they want to come back and say, we didn't agree to this. Well, they did. They signed 2 different documents. Privacy policy notice by our underwriter. Let's see, substitute 1099-S if it's in an LLC or in an estate. Again, with the seller intake form, it has questions on there that asks for the tax ID number for the LLC or the estate. So this generally we should have ahead of time, but just in case we don't, we'll ask for it again at the closing table. And sometimes people need a little extra time to look for that information.
Okay, guys,
All right.
if you have to go ahead, but Randy, thank you for keeping on going.
All right, you're welcome. This is just the Texas disclosure. So anytime there's a policy issued and commissions are being paid out, this just indicates those details there. It indicates the commissions being paid, recording fees, and at the top of the second page, we're working on getting our, escrow fees populating in there. It's just a document that's required by the Texas Department of Insurance. So, okay, what happens at closing? I know it's 10 o'clock, so we're going to kind of breeze through this. So we're obviously present. The sellers and/or buyers are present. And sometimes the lender may be present. I think I already covered what the sellers and buyers need to bring. Sellers, valid ID, wire information. Buyers need to bring their ID as well. And I also urge the buyers to bring just an extra check from their checkbook in case the closing, the cash to close changes at the last minute. We also will orchestrate and coordinate who signs when. We typically, the seller and buyer close separately. We never close them together unless it's like a family member and they want to close together. But even then, we're discussing private information. And so I would prefer that they close separate. And then we explain how funding and possession works. Once the lender provides us funding approval, then we'll fund the file. And of course, we keep everyone posted throughout that whole process. We do a pre-closing email to the buyer, to the seller as well, which I've indicated. If there's a home warranty, during the early part of the contract, we will contact the buyer and copy y'all as to which home warranty company they want. And also, if there's any post-closing communication with them, we will also CC you guys on that as well.
Yeah, and I have some templates for these items as well, like coming from the agent that I will share with you guys. That are just kind of, you write those emails over and over, so it makes sense to save them as templates. So here's like the examples of the email.
Yeah, these are.
You can kind of take it and make it your own, of course. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do we have any questions? Sorry, I told y'all I was long-winded and I apologize. I kind of go into a little bit too much detail sometimes, so forgive me. But does anyone have any questions before we conclude? No?
I think we're good. Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all. Much appreciated. And we do these quite frequently. So you'll hear from Zareen and myself on the next one as well. And so, yeah. So thank you guys for attending and looking forward to working with everyone.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.